It's me again, it's Andrea, and I'm back just with a short message for this series that I'm doing for getting comfortable in front of the camera, doing more videos, and getting started in YouTube. And sincerely, today I'm just reading the Bible. I felt inspired, called since last night to read Esther, just because it's a great book to read when you're wanting to have favor and to understand one of the many ways in which God works. And so in this book, it's called the Book of Esther, but reading it again, I've read it before a few times, watched movies, heard it, played in my ears, but really God calls us to certain books for different revelations a lot of the time. Some things that I already knew and I still get the same revelations, but this time around I believe that the character that mostly is standing out for me is Mordecai, so the uncle or the cousin rather of Esther. And he's standing out to me because for so many reasons. He's such a pioneer in her story because he's the one who adopts her and who starts taking care of her. He's the one who gives her wise counsel to not reveal so easily who she is and where she's coming from. He is also somebody that was regarded as someone that was hated by somebody that was very close to the king and who had a lot of power, who was Haman, who hated him. And very early, when Esther was crowned queen, he would often be close to the gate of the king. And in one of those occasions, after that Esther became queen, he overheard two of the king's chamberlains that kept the door looking to see how they would destroy the king. And then Esther told the king, and they executed these two men. And that stayed like that. And this happened on the year that Esther became queen. So she became married to the king. And that happened, it was left in the past. But I find it so interesting how 5 years later, when there was the decree from Haman to plot to kill all the Jews, and actually it's often said that is the Esther fast, which it is. But before it was the Esther's fast, Mordecai was the first person that was mentioned fasting. Now, it wasn't said directly that he was fasting, but he was wearing sackcloth with ashes. And if you look, it very often means in those times that whoever wore sackcloth and ashes mourning, and it was often accompanied with fasting. Now, even if I were to be wrong and he wasn't fasting in that time, it still said that in every province, wheresoever the king commandments was and his decree came, there was mourning among the Jews and fasting. So there was fasting in the nation before Esther fasted. That was just like a quick parenthesis. This is not really why I'm making the video. It's really more about God's timing and how his gratification was delayed for 5 years, only for that on the same night where he was to be executed, because Haman hated him so much that he planned to have him hanged, and he went very early to the king's presence. But that night the king couldn't sleep. God woke him up and he asked that the book of Chronicles, which is the book of remembrance of actions, things that were happening in the palace, to be read to him because he couldn't sleep. And it so felt like 5 years before that he heard, it was read to him about the time that Mordecai saved the king's life. So who was the very first person in the morning there? Who was going early, and he was so happy to go tell the king and ask him for the permission to kill Mordecai, to hang Mordecai. And he was so consumed by his own self-love, and he was so conceited by himself, that when the king asked him, because there was nothing that was done to Mordecai at that time, he didn't get any reward for doing something that was right and that was correct. But God's timing is so much better, because now at this time, Haman is coming to the king and he's wanting to convince the king as to why he should let him hang Mordecai. But the king, before he let him speak, he asked him, what should I do for the man who's done such a great thing, who the king wants to honor? And then he's thinking that it's for himself. So he just suggests he should wear the king's robe and his crown, and somebody who you esteem a lot should go in the streets and should yell out all kinds of praises to this person. And so the king goes, everything that you said, go ahead and do it for Mordecai. And I laugh at this because I'm like, God is so funny. God is just so funny. Haman was ready to kill Mordecai, and he ended up just praising him across the whole streets of the kingdom, because God's delayed reward came at the right time. And now I really recommend reading this book with attention, because God's timing is so perfect. This came right before that Esther was going to hold the banquet, the second banquet with Haman and with the king, for her to ask them to save the life of the Jews. And it was known that Mordecai was a Jew, but it was also then known that Haman had prepared for Mordecai to be hanged in a specific place on the gallows. And so just it all works out. Sometimes we're like, oh, we don't see that the good things that we're doing, they eventually gonna have a positive reward. But then it's God's timing, the perfect time, and he always remembers us. And he humiliated pretty much the enemy of Mordecai, who was planning to kill him. And then when he returned to the kingdom, his faith was even worse than what he thought. So all of this to make this video shorter. And we never know when God is going to reward us for the things that we did in the past. So we shouldn't doubt him. We shouldn't be impatient with him. We should just trust in his timing. He knows the end from the beginning. And all along, God knew that a few years later, this was going to happen. And his timing couldn't have been more perfect. So continue to do good. Continue to trust in him. Because when he flips everything around, Mordecai woke up. He woke up in sackcloth and ashes. And that same day, he got picked up. He got put on golden royal clothing, the king's crown. And he was paraded around the whole kingdom with praises of how good he had done. So his day did not end up in death as it was death as his enemy had planned for him, but it ended up in celebration and in divine positioning for him. So let me know what you think about this story. I know that it was not all in order. It's pretty detailed. I didn't want to spend too much time on this, and I want to encourage you to read it, and to read it with patience, and to ask for the Holy Spirit to reveal these things to you. It's a very beautiful story. And for the first time, I saw how this was so much more, at least for this time, my revelation is so much more about Mordecai, his trust and his belief in God, because he knew that God was going to come and save them. And also, other people knew that because he was a son of God, any enemy was done. Anybody who tried to come and attack him, and it showed in the end, in the result. So let me know what you think about this. if you like this kind of videos, because these are the type of videos that I'm going to be posting. So alongside with my apartment testimony, which I am in my apartment right now, which I haven't done, and it's coming for you soon. But in the meantime, let me know what you thought about this. Comment, share. If there's somebody that you think might benefit from this, it would be lovely for them to be able to have a word of encouragement. In the meantime, until next time.